Chapter 86, Using the Sea as Cultivation Base 1. The moonlight cascaded down, covering the giant crocodile's body in a layer of moonlight. From afar, it looked like the ship was alive and was absorbing the essence of the moon, as though it was breathing. This caused the moonlight to be even more intense as it was absorbed. Amidst the flowing light, the cold light was revealed. Xu Qing stared at it for a long time. Whether it was his life in the slums or the scavenger campsite, other than the new house that Captain Lei had given him, the places he lived in were mostly crude. As for this crocodile-like boat, it was clean and tidy under the moonlight. There was a sharpness to it, and Xu Qing couldn't help but squat down and touch it. It was cold and hard. The most important thing was how it was his. "This is mine," Xu Qing said softly. Just when he was about to step forward, he paused for a moment. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as he sensed a gaze filled with malice staring at him from the surroundings. However, the other party had hidden himself very well and Xu Qing wasn't able to find him in a short period of time. Hence, he retracted the cold glint in his eyes and maintained his calmness from before, pretending to look down at his shoes. The straw shoes were very worn out and were mixed with a large amount of mud and dry blood. His dirty toes could be seen through the gap. After a moment of silence, Xu Qing took off his shoes and looked at his feet, which were covered in dirt. He then sat at the side and stretched his hands into the seawater, rinsing his feet until his fair skin was revealed. Throughout the entire process, he seemed calm, but he was secretly observing the surroundings, waiting for the person with malicious intent to appear. However, the other party seemed to be very cautious. Even when Xu Qing sat there and revealed a hint of laziness, the person didn't appear. Xu Qing's expression was as calm as ever. He got up and stepped onto the boat, glancing at the black canopy. The space inside the black tent wasn't big and the interior was very simple. There was only a bed, a futon, and a bathroom. In addition, the roof of the black tent was a little short. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to stand completely, but it should be very suitable for sitting down. After Xu Qing swept his gaze across the surroundings, he didn't step into it. Instead, he sat on the deck of the boat outside the black tent and listened to the clear waves outside. He could feel the small boat swaying with the waves. In this relative silence, his gaze seemed to drift, as though his thoughts were slowly dispersing. Xu Qing thought of his struggling life in the slums back then. He thought of the cold nights he spent hiding in his little nest. Every winter, he would be in the cold, wondering if he could see the sun the next day. This was because someone would freeze to death every winter. Therefore, he was very afraid of the cold. Perhaps what he was afraid of wasn't the cold in his body but his memories. At that moment, he sat silently on the boat. Xu Qing looked at the dark night outside and the bright moon in the sky. He recalled the first person he killed many years ago. That person wanted to eat him. In the end, he laboriously cut off his head and placed it at the entrance of his little nest. From then on, the way everyone looked at him changed. The boat was still swaying. The thoughts in Xu Qing's eyes seemed to be drifting away, but he was mumbling in his heart. "Should I place one here as well?" 1. The instant the voice rang out in his heart, Xu Qing's body abruptly leaned back as a cold light whistled past him. The instant he dodged the cold light, the fleeting light in Xu Qing's eyes vanished. It was as though everything was fake and the coldness that was truly hidden within broke out at this moment. He finally showed himself. At the next moment, the seawater beside the boat suddenly splashed up as a figure suddenly rushed out, heading straight for Xu Qing. There was also a sharp cold glint that flashed from the right hand of this figure. It was a dagger that glowed blue under the moonlight. It had been smeared with poison. With the help of the moonlight, Xu Qing could see who it was. It was a disciple wearing a gray Taoist robe. He didn't cover his face and looked to be in his 30s. He was only at the 5th level of check condensation, but he gave Xu Qing a sense of threat. At that moment, this disciple's expression was malevolent and killing intent filled his eyes. His speed was so fast that he got close in an instant. The dagger in his hand then stabbed fiercely toward Xu Qing's chest. Xu Qing's gaze was ice cold. He ignored the other party's dagger and stretched out his right hand at an even faster speed, grabbing the incoming person's arm. As the body refining energy, his body erupted, he abruptly rotated his body, instantly lifting the body of the cultivator who was rushing over. Under the shock and disbelief of this person, his body was smashed onto the ship's deck by Xu Qing. With a boom, Blood splattered everywhere as a tentacle made of flesh and blood suddenly drilled out from the man's body. The tentacle then rapidly lashed out at Xu Qing with mucus trailing behind it. The aura it contained surpassed the 5th level of check condensation, reaching the 6th level. Xu Qing's face was expressionless. The shadow behind him suddenly appeared and directly suppressed it. With a boom, the tentacle was instantly paralyzed and collapsed. After losing the tentacle, the cultivator spat out a mouthful of blood. His countenance instantly turned pale and he still wanted to struggle. However, in the next instant, Xu Qing's left hand grabbed the dagger and pressed it against the cultivator's neck. The dagger was very cold, and it sliced through his skin. He only needed to exert a little force to slit his throat. This scene caused the cultivator's body to tremble. When he looked at Xu Qing, his gaze was filled with terror. "How did you hide yourself? Also, what were the tentacles on your body earlier?" Xu Qing coldly looked at the cultivator in front of him and asked. "This is the seal of the sea's hand that have transplanted into my body. It can increase my combat strength and also allow me to hide my aura in the sea. Many people in the sect do this. Junior brother, I can think of a way to make up for my actions this time. I don't have enough contribution points, but have accepted a mission. Tomorrow." The cultivator hurriedly spoke, but before he could finish speaking, the dagger in Xu Qing's hand slashed fiercely.